Burmese pythons have transformed the entire ecosystem of South Florida. After arriving here as seemingly innocent pets, these snakes have overrun their new environment in just a few decades.
For 40 years, Florida's Burmese pythons feared nothing. 18 feet long, over 200 pounds, big enough to swallow an alligator whole. The apex monster of the Everglades.
One invasive predator changed everything. The Burmese python. Since the 1980s, this uninvited predator has run rampant through this brutal stretch of swamps, sawgrass, and mangroves.
So, when researchers started finding these giants dead in the swamp, headless, torn apart, dragged into the brush, and half buried in the mud, it made no sense. Nothing out here was supposed to be able to touch them. But something can. Something has been hunting the hunters. One savage kill at a time, and even the scientists who figured out what it is can't quite believe what their cameras caught. How the monster took over. Here's the first thing you've got to understand. This snake was never supposed to be here. Burmese pythons come from the jungles of Southeast Asia, thousands of miles away. They landed in Florida through the exotic pet trade back in the 1970s and 80s, bought as hatchlings no thicker than your finger, then dumped or lost into the wild. Once they grew into 200-pound giants, nobody could keep in a tank. And they didn't just survive out here. They took the whole place over like it had always been theirs. Biologically, they're built for exactly this. A Burmese python can top 18 feet and weigh over 200 pounds, and its skin melts straight into the shadows and leaf litter of the swamp floor. You can walk within a few feet of one and never see it. They're ambush hunters that lie dead still for weeks, then strike. And when one finally eats, its body pulls off something wild. After swallowing prey whole, its heart can swell up to 40% just to power the digestion. But the python's real weapon was never its size. It was surprise. Nothing in the Everglades ever evolved next to a giant constrictor, so nothing recognized it as a threat. And an animal that doesn't know to run just sits there and becomes dinner. There's even evidence hinting that some of these Florida snakes carry Indian python genes, a possible hybrid that could be tougher than either parent. The result speaks for itself. Since the late 1990s, raccoons in the worst hit areas are down more than 99%. Opossums around 99, bobcats nearly 90, with marsh rabbits, cottontails, and foxes basically wiped off the map. 24 mammal species and dozens of bird species have turned up inside python stomachs. So everybody asked the obvious question, why not just kill them all? Florida tried, and that's exactly where this gets frustrating. Why humans could not win. In 2017, the state rolled out a full elimination program, paying trained hunters by the hour and by the foot to pull these snakes out of the wetlands. Every year, there's the Florida Python Challenge. 10 days, hundreds of hunters, a $10,000 prize for whoever bags the most. Scientists even got sneaky, strapping radio transmitters onto male scout snakes and letting them lead the way to the hidden females during breeding season. All told, more than 23,000 pythons have been hauled out of the Florida wild, and it barely made a dent. One female lays 50 to 100 eggs in a single clutch. Run that math across a whole swamp. Worse, these snakes are ghosts. Biologists figure only about 1% of the pythons out there are ever even seen by a person, let alone caught. For every one a hunter hauls out, dozens more sit invisible in the sawgrass. You can't win a war like this by counting bodies. On our own, we were never going to be enough. So, if you want to see what finally started turning this around, something no removal program ever managed, hit subscribe right now, because this next part is where it gets unreal. Because then, without a single hunter involved, the pythons started dying on their own. The first crack in the armor. It started with a wildlife camera in Big Cypress National Preserve, June of 2021. The camera was aimed at a nesting female python, just there to study how she guarded her eggs. What it caught instead had never been documented anywhere in Florida. A bobcat strolled into frame. Now, you have to understand what a bobcat is out here. It's not a monster, it's a victim. One of the natives these pythons had ground down to almost nothing, its numbers cut by nearly 90%. A grown one weighs maybe 15 to 30 pounds. The python coiled a few feet away weighed several times that, and could have wrapped it up and squeezed the life out of it in under a minute. Every rule of this swamp says the cat, should keep walking. It didn't. It stopped right at the nest, studied it for a moment, and started lifting out eggs one at a time. Calm, deliberate, unhurried, eating the next generation of pythons before they could ever hatch. No panic, no smash and grab. It worked that clutch like it had done this 100 times before. And then the mother came back. This is the part that stopped the researchers cold when they reviewed the footage. The cat didn't bolt. It held its ground. It swatted at her. It refused to give up the nest that was now, as far as it was concerned, its own. The two of them circled and tested each other, the cat never turning its back, eyes locked on her head, always staying just out of striking range, and the snake never quite committing to a lunge at something that wouldn't stop moving. A 15-pound cat, facing down a snake that swallows animals bigger than itself, reading her every move and refusing to blink first. And in the end, it was the python that backed off. It was the first time anyone had ever recorded a native Florida animal raiding python eggs, and staring down the mother to do it. But cracking open a nest is one thing. 4 years later, a camera near Naples would catch something that wasn't a robbery at all. It was a body. The kill. In 2025, a biologist named Ian Bartoszek, who's tracked these snakes for the Conservancy of Southwest Florida for more than a decade, followed a radio signal into the brush near Naples and stopped in his tracks. There was a Burmese python lying there in the leaf litter, 13 feet long, 52 pounds, stone dead, and its head had been torn clean off, the neck a ragged stump where the skull used to be. The body was hauled into the undergrowth and half buried, cached. The way a cat stashes a kill, it plans to come back and finish over a few days. The way he described the scene, it looked less like an attack and more like something had gone off, with barely anything left but the skull. Then the trail camera showed him exactly what had done it, a bobcat. One cat, around 25 pounds, had killed and cached a python twice its own weight. His red on it was blunt. A 25-pound cat taking down a 52-pound python is a flat-out win for the home team. Because for years, it had run the exact opposite direction. His team had cut open pythons before and found bobcat claws still sitting in their stomachs. Proof of who usually ended up as the meal. Now, for the first time on record, it flipped completely. The cat ate the snake and then hid the leftovers to come back for more. Here's what really gets me though. Bobcats did not evolve alongside these pythons. This snake is a stranger from the other side of the planet. There's no ancient instinct for hunting it, no trick handed down from mom, nothing coded in from 1,000 generations back. Whatever that cat worked out, it worked out on its own, in real time, watching, trying, failing, adjusting, and finally finding the one narrow moment the snake was weak enough to hit. Which leaves a question just hanging there in the dark. When is a 50-pound apex predator ever weak enough for something the size of a house cat to kill it and drag it off? The windows of weakness. Turns out, more often than you'd think, the snake just has to be caught at the wrong moment, and there are 4 of them. Right after a big meal, when all its blood and energy are locked into digestion, and it's lying there swollen and sluggish, barely able to strike. During a cold snap, when this tropical cold-blooded animal goes slow and stiff out in the open, and that's exactly when the evidence points toward a Florida black bear taking down at least one radio-tagged scout snake that later turned up dead, while a female is wrapped tight around her nest, focused inward, unable to watch every angle at once, the same opening that Bobcat used. And during a shed, when a cloudy film creeps over the snake's eyes and leaves it half blind for days, navigating on smell alone. None of these weak spots are new. The snake has always had them. What's new, what's never happened before, is that the natives are finally learning to read them and time their move. And it is not just the bobcats. The whole swamp turns. Once scientists knew to look, the counterattack turned up all over the place. American alligators, the real old kings of this swamp, have been photographed with full-grown pythons, clamped in their jaws, dragging them down into the water, where all that constricting muscle means nothing. Cottonmouths, the thick venomous water snakes, have been found with young pythons already inside their stomachs, which means the invaders' own hatchlings are now on the menu. Eagles and hawks snatch the juveniles clean off the ground from above, before they ever grow big enough to be dangerous. The eastern indigo snake, a threatened native that hunts other snakes for a living, will swallow a young python whenever it gets the chance. And then there are the eggs, the softest target of all. North of the Everglades, researchers rolled up to clear out a python nest before it could hatch and found a flock of black vultures had already beaten them there, ripping the cover off the clutch and eating the eggs straight out of the ground. A whole future generation of pythons wiped out in an afternoon, and not a single hunter within miles. The scientists are careful about how they phrase this, and that care matters. These natives, they say, appear to be learning to see the python as a food source and to hit it right when it's vulnerable. The whole ecosystem, in their words, seems to be rebalancing itself, unevenly, imperfectly, but for real. So, the swamp's winning now, right? Yeah. I wouldn't get comfortable just yet. Is it enough? Okay, real talk. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you the pythons are done, because they're not. There are still somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 of them across South Florida, and every female is still capable of dropping 100 eggs a clutch. All these wins, the raided nests, the decapitated 50-pounder, the vultures on the eggs, they're real, but they're scattered thin across an enormous landscape. And it's not all good news. Pythons build up so much mercury in their bodies that the state warns people flat out not to eat them, which means every native predator learning to hunt them might be swallowing that poison right along with the meal. The hunters can't stop. If anything, they need to go bigger, but something shifted, and you can't unsee it. For the first time since these snakes showed up, the Everglades isn't just losing, it's hitting back. A bobcat here, a bear there, a flock of vultures, a gator in the shallows. None of them talking to each other, none of it planned, all landing on the same idea at the same time. The thing that ate our world can be killed and eaten right back. And honestly, it makes you wonder how many other wrecked places out there are already quietly fixing themselves. And we just haven't pointed a camera at the right spot yet. The bobcats are still learning, the bears are still waiting on the cold, the vultures are still finding the nests. And somewhere out in that black sawgrass tonight, another snake that spent 40 years fearing absolutely nothing is about to learn, the hard way, that its reign was never guaranteed. If this changed how you see what's happening in the Everglades, do 2 quick things for me. Hit subscribe. Stories like this, where nature pulls off something no scientist saw coming, are exactly what this channel is built for. And drop me a comment. Do you think the Everglades can claw its way back on its own, or is it already too late? I read every single one. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.